All right, guys, this is Your Boom is in the Shot with Ben and TJ. We have a special guest tonight. We've had him on the show before, Alan Hills. He's a local movie reviewer, and we're going to talk about Captain Marvel. Woo!
That's right, guys. We're talking about Captain Marvel. I didn't know why I didn't say it at the same time as you guys, but
No, it's okay. It was not planned.
Yeah.
It was an impromptu, simultaneous Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and this is part 2 of our Marvel-Mania week. We just had our round table with our friends Will, Zach, and Odie as our guests, and now we have our friend Alan as a guest for our Captain Marvel episode.
Yep, that's what I just said.
Yes, that's what Ben just said, but I wanted to say it again because sometimes if you do something good, you have to do it again and again and again, like Marvel did with this movie.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me on again.
I mean, yeah. We're happy to have you.
So, initial impressions, guys?
Well, personally, I liked it a lot. No, in fact, I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. And I think the most unique thing about the movie is that it's not the typical MCU origin film, where if you think of other MCU origin films like Iron Man, Ant-Man, or Doctor Strange, you know, they show the process of that character becoming a hero, whereas the case with Carol Danvers, she's kind of a, quote, hero already. You know, she already has her power. She's with the Kree. We know she has these unique abilities. But this movie focused on, you know, unraveling her character a little bit throughout the movie, and it had a kind of, you know, an entertaining mystery, whereas to other heroes, they spend an entire franchise where a character has to discover what they're worth as a hero. Like, you know, Iron Man 3, Stark has to learn what it really means to be Iron Man. Thor Ragnarok, Thor really has to learn what it means to be Thor. But Captain Marvel was, I know, Ben, you're laughing about
always
that.
on his Ragnarok hate.
But Captain Marvel,
He can't help it.
but Captain Marvel was different. I mean, she had to learn what it meant to have her powers through the course of one movie, and that alone was very powerful. And I think that opens the door for more creative opportunities for other Captain Marvel films in the future. So that's ultimately why I think the movie was great, and yeah, that's why I liked it.
I agree with you, Alan. I think that the method in which they tell her origin story being different is a good thing. And I know that TJ and we talked about this film a little bit before the podcast, as we usually do. And I got the impression from you that you kind of didn't like the method of origin story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just really like unnecessarily convoluted in a lot of parts. I did appreciate her growth and the way that her character kind of comes to the fruition by the end, because, you know, even in the middle of the movie, you're like, how does she end up being the hero that Nick Fury has to call upon? Like, this chick is special, but she doesn't seem like, you know, the universe saving least powerful until the end, and then you're like, okay, I get it. So she had a progression that I appreciated, but I don't know, there was just so much shrouded in mystery for the first like 30 minutes of the movie that you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And like it just feels like it should not be this confusing the whole time.
I didn't find it particularly confusing, but what I did think was that Captain Marvel was kind of a flat character. Her personality doesn't change the entire film. She doesn't have much character growth or development other than that she kind of gets control of her emotions, I guess. But like her personality doesn't change. I mean, she doesn't come to any sort of like great realization other than getting her memory back and kind of breaking the cycle of being manipulated. But like, in that regard, I found the movie kind of bland.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I think that in a lot of ways I found this movie bland. And that was that's my biggest problem with Captain Marvel. At the same time, though, I enjoyed watching it, and I liked it a hell of a lot better than most of the MCU movies. I think that Brie Larson is a good actor. I think that she was a good choice for Captain Marvel, though I don't know if they did her justice in the film. And you know,
I mean, she'll have plenty of time to grow in the MCU, I guess. You know?
I hope that she does. I think that we were talking about this earlier, but I think this is a good jumping point because I think it gets to the meat of my issue with this film, and maybe yours as well. But I think that the character that they make up in that film is there's a conflict in the way that she's portrayed and the way that the world has been set up. I think that Captain Marvel as a character, Brie Larson's character, and I forget her name.
Carol Danvers.
And I forget it because she has two different names through the entire film.
I know, Veers and then Carol Danvers. Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of that. This movie plays a lot to that 90s nostalgia, which, you know, we talked in the special on
But it's
Wednesday.
actually set in the 90s, and so it's kind of fair.
And it should.
There would
be
a Blockbuster, there would be a Radio Shack.
Right.
Yeah.
She would wear a 9 Inch Nails shirt.
Right. Well, and that's where we're getting to the root of the problem. I think that for them to play to the 90s nostalgia in the way that they did, and the kind of character that she's supposed to be, I think they screwed something up, because to me she seemed kind of bland, and she seemed kind of like normal.
There was something they were trying to do there, like you were saying, with her being like kind of more in the alternative culture, the grunge culture of the 90s, and then she's also just kind of like a really vanilla blonde girl at the same time.
And I think that's
who just wears like Guns N' Roses shirts or
and I think that's where I get lost in that film, because I want her to be, aesthetically spunky the same way that she is verbally spunky, because the movie I think is really witty. There's a lot of the way that they do the humor in that film is a little bit different than most of the MCU's. There's a lot more of like verbal quips, which I like. I think that's better than dick jokes like in Thor Ragnarok.
Generally, yeah. I mean, although like I said to you earlier, I didn't laugh at most of the jokes in this movie.
And I don't think you're supposed to. I think most of these jokes aren't ha-ha funny laughs at jokes. I think they're, oh, wow, that's clever jokes. And like I made the comparison to you earlier, and this is kind of extreme, but I think of like Casablanca, which is one of my favorite movies in the world. That film is really witty, and the writing is really witty. And it's not ha-ha funny, but it's enjoyable in that there's a lot of cleverness.
Well, it just felt like there were a lot of jokes that were supposed to be ha-ha funny. And again, like I said to you earlier, it might just be because the theater that I saw it in was full of people who were laughing at everything. And so I think maybe to me it came across as like, oh, that was supposed to be funny, but I didn't find that funny. Maybe it wasn't, but like there were just a lot of those little things that were kind of thrown in there. And I feel bad that I can't pull a specific like example off the top of my head, but there were so many in there where I'm like, everyone's laughing, and I'm like, it's not even funny. Maybe
this is my own pretension, but I've come to this point in my life where when I go to see, especially MCU movies, the crowd, they irritate me. I just like I try to not let their reactions to things affect my viewing of the film, because the crowd is going to react to the dumbest things in the movie.
That's very true.
I even watching Captain Marvel, we had to sit way up front in the front row because it was a packed theater.
Oh my god!
And unfortunately, we ended up going to a busier theater than we were originally planning, which is why we ended up sitting in the front.
Well, like when the cat shoots the tentacles out of its mouth, like my whole theater started roaring, and I'm like, that's not even funny.
And it wasn't. I didn't think it was either.
That was disgusting. That was a little too Men in Black for me. That was like so weird. The way the tentacles come out of the face.
I guess it was funny in like the ridiculousness factor, where it was like, oh, that's why the Skrulls were scared of it. I get it now. Okay, but it wasn't like oh my god, he's got tentacles out of himself. Where like the only joke I really did laugh at, well, there were two of them. One was like when Fury was like, just call me Fury, and it was like the whole thing, and it gets set up, and then it pays off in that scene when he calls him Nicholas. But But like one that it really didn't land was like when they pull up the sheet to look at the Skrull's dick. Like what was that? Like it wasn't funny at all. And then the scene that did make me laugh later is when they're like, "Call me young lady one more time," and I'm gonna put my foot where it doesn't belong. And the alien who doesn't get the joke is like, "Am I supposed to guess where that is?" And they're like, "Your ass."
And they all said it in unison. That was pretty funny. Though the funny thing about that scene where he lifts up the blanket or the whatever it is to look at the alien dick, to me that was totally. To me, that was totally a Samuel L. Jackson thing. Like, to me, that didn't seem like a Marvel dick joke. That seemed like something that.
Well, the most obvious Samuel L. Jackson thing was when the cat scratches his eye and he goes, "Mother."
Well, yeah, that's
true.
That too. And I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, honestly,
no, that one got a chuckle out of me too. But those were like pretty much the only examples.
But I also don't think that there was much else in that film that was supposed to be haha funny.
Yeah.
I think there was one joke that really didn't land. That was distracting, and it reminds me of if you guys were listening to the Aquaman cast, I remember bringing up when she eats the rose.
And
how that's really awkward and weird.
Yeah.
There's a similar thing that happens when Captain Marvel is meeting with the Skrull leader for the first time.
Yeah.
And he's drinking out of a smoothie in the middle of her best friend's house.
I know, that was kind of strange.
And it was supposed to be like I guess it was supposed to be like a juxtaposition of how serious the moment was supposed to be versus him being like a goofball, but it was dumb and not funny and kind of weird.
My favorite humorous moment was kind of around that same part a few minutes afterwards, where they pop in the CD, to hear the evidence of who she really is, and
Oh,
of
it
course,
takes forever to load.
they pull the
What's
loading
happening?
joke.
It's loading.
But then this is what makes it funny. The scroll makes a nod at how stupid it is. I just found the bland nature of that pretty funny.
Well, it's that whole like wider joke of like that the Earth is like a shithole technologically compared to the rest of the universe. And, like
Yes,
literally, the one character literally says that. Like, you ever been to C-53 or whatever?
Yeah,
She's
it's
like,
a
it's a
shithole.
shithole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, and I actually thought that was one of those scenes where they did a good job of doing that nostalgia thing, and I think there were times when the nostalgia was a little heavy-handed.
Yeah. The music choices were pretty accurate, though. They used a couple songs that absolutely dominated the radio at that time. I was born in '95. I was a kid in that era. I heard those songs to death. They're good, but they played them to death.
So here's
they
the
were
with
accurate.
the music in the movie.
Gosh.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So overall, my impression of this movie was like a B+. Like, I thought it was good enough. I think people should go and see it, especially if you're a Marvel fan. Especially if you're a superhero fan in general, really a comic book fan, you should go see it. It's worth seeing. It's entertaining enough. There's enough stuff that's in it that's good. It's serviceable. Like Ben already said, like Brie Larson is great and Samuel L. Jackson is great, and their chemistry and their whole dynamic is excellent. And it's a fun movie in all zones. However, there are problems, and one of these problems is the music. Okay, so Marvel really played up the whole like, we finally have a female-fronted superhero movie thing, and that's great. And honestly, like, I was all on board for it, and I'm still on board for it. It just was like, I went into the movie and I was like, all right, let's do this. Like, let's see some like a really empowering like female-fronted movie. Like, I'm on board for this. It's about time, for Marvel at least, because obviously DC already had Wonder Woman, but they just hit you over the head with it so hard, and it's really in that music. It's like after the dozenth time you've heard a female-fronted girl power rock song, it's like, okay, I get it. Like, and then it culminates into Just a Girl in the third act fight scene. You're like, okay, I get it. She's a girl. It's a female-fronted superhero movie. Girl power, girls. I get it. Okay, guys, I get it. I get it. I get it. And it just kind of like by the end, I was super numb to it. And I think if I was a girl going to see it, I would have kept being like, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm great that like, I'm happy that's there, and that's great, and that like there's this female empowerment element to it, but it was too much. It was just so forced in there to the point that it lost its effect, and it became more cheesy and more like, all right, I get it. She's a girl. Okay.
Plus she's not just a girl at that moment. She's Captain Marvel now. I mean, she's this hero now. It's kind of
exactly.
It's not the right song,
and it's so on the nose, and a lot of it, like,
no, it is, but it's just not the right song for that.
I think the song is fine. I don't think it's the song choices. I think it's the frequency. It just happens too many times that it loses its effect, and it gets cheesy and stupid by that point. Where if they had only done like 3 or 4 female-fronted songs,
and then ended with like a girl. Just a Girl, which was a great choice for that scene, I think, and it sums up the theme of the movie.
As opposed to the only male sung song in the whole movie, Come As You Are, in that virtual reality scene where it doesn't fit at all. And the character is also like, ooh, the music, good choice, and is like dancing, and you're like, okay, I get it, Come As You Are, because she's finding herself and being who she really is.
Right.
Like, it just, I was so over the music by that point.
Yeah.
My problem is not so much the music, and I think we have the same problem, but our thought about how it would have been better is different. Mm. I think that it's not the music. I think it's the rest of the movie, and I think that they didn't go. How do I put this? I think I was talking to you earlier, and it seems to me almost as if the producers went in and said, we make this a little bit more general audience, and then took away some of Captain Marvel's edgy kind of grunginess, because there's a lot of those nods to grunge culture and I feel like Brie Larson, I mean, she played Ramona Flowers. She should be an alternative character. I think that's why she was cast in this role.
Yeah.
And I feel like they took that away from her and made her a generic blonde woman, which isn't necessarily all bad, but I think it's why the music seems so out of place, because like, I want to see like, like a Riot Girl, like punk, like really
it also just has
peppy,
like zero tie to her character in the way that like Peter Quill's music had a tie to him.
Right.
At least like he had this cassette and he was listening to these songs and it reminded him of his mother and his childhood that he was ripped away from. Where like with her, if she had at least like, I don't know, put on an alternative radio station in Fury's car and cranked it up, and he would have been like, I'm not listening to this crap. She would have been like, too bad or something. Like, you know, like they could have built it into her character. Like, this is what she listens to. The only thing we had is that she grabs a Nine Inch Nails shirt. And earlier in the movie, we see her like rocking out in a Guns N' Roses shirt. And that's like, and I think that's like the general audience thing where it's like, everybody knows Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses is so edgy, you know, where like they could have really like, they could have leaned into more of her, and like they actually also, listening to Hole and No Doubt and Heart.
They played heavy into her, this whole like airman mentality where she's like she's an Air Force girl. And I think that's a general audience move to me. That's what that reads. And I know, like, one of the reasons why I really feel like they dialed back, like the producers came in and changed it, is because when you look at the costume designs and the settings, it looks like they were supposed to have all of that grunge element, and for some reason she just doesn't. Like, look at her costume. She has a mohawk in her outfit, which is so sick. Like, I remember watching that and being like, oh, wow, this is like some tank girl aesthetic, like real punky, like shit going on. Like, that's what she's supposed to embody, but she doesn't. It's like the things around her do. And that's where I think there's a problem, because I think if she came in and she was like super peppy and super like girl power, like a Riot Girl front man. Yeah. I think that all of those choices of having really on the nose music wouldn't have felt so wrong. It would have been like, that's her character.
I agree.
That's what should be happening.
Because it didn't feel like it came out of her character. It felt like the music supervisor just went ham on every, like, oh, what's another female-fronted rock band from the 70s to the 90s? Throw that in there. Throw that in there.
Right. And I think that when you step back and look at like Guardians of the Galaxy, they were really smart in using nostalgic 80s music, and they tried to do that in Captain Marvel, but that's what they missed out, is that they didn't make it make sense for her.
Yeah, they didn't create any associations with the character through the music. I mean, no one plays it in the movie, and no one talks about it in this example, I'm going to say, as much as we like to criticize it, I know, but Thor Ragnarok, you know, they chose Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin because in that song, they reference things like, you know, Hammer Valhalla of the Gods and stuff like that, and Valhalla. Yeah, so therefore it makes sense in the movie, where in Captain Marvel, like you said, TJ, they just throw it in there without creating any associations with the character. You know, this isn't music the character likes.
I mean, even in Ragnarok, it's still really on the nose, but they do it once. And where like with this movie, they just do it again and again and again. And even like on the 5th time, I wasn't mad at it yet, but it was like at like the 12th time, I was like, I was just jaded by it.
I know,
and I was seeing, and me, part of it was like, I was so excited to hear a lot of that music, because that, I feel like 90s music doesn't get a place in films very much.
Yeah, no, nowadays. It doesn't. It's too bad. Yeah.
Well, it's probably going to be the next like move for Marvel, honestly.
Oh,
as like the ages continue, it's going to move out of the 80s
into the 90s and early 2000s. I completely agree, because that's the demographic that they're targeting, and I think that's like, we're young, you know, in the grand scheme of things, and 90s and early 2000s music is nostalgic for you and me.
My God,
Nirvana and well, really Nirvana was the big nostalgic one for me there, but I think
grunge in general. I mean, this was like the first big movie I can think of that's really like touching on the grunge culture, even if it's only on a surface level. So I can appreciate it from that perspective as a big, you know, grunge stan.
But I think they take it away from her, because I think it feels to me like Captain Marvel should have that grunge aesthetic.
She also missed out on the grunge era, though.
That's true.
Because she gets ripped away from Earth in 1989 and doesn't return until 95.
I know, she is from another world. It's not like she's used to this kind of environment.
Well, I mean, she's from Earth. She lives in Earth until 1989. She just goes to space for 6 years and then comes back.
Yeah, and she just doesn't even remember. But it takes her a while.
But at the same time, I mean, she got ripped out at 1989. Riot Girl is in full swing at this point. I mean, that punk girl power aesthetic is a thing, and that ties into grunge, and the sound is a little bit different, but the movement and the styles is very similar. I mean, they're related. They're both countercultural alternative movements. And if you want to look at her as maybe she's a Riot Girl going into getting taken by the Kree, and then coming back and then seeing grunge and then being like, all right, I'm going to co-opt this into my style.
Yeah.
That would make so much sense to me. And it would be such an easy thing to do in the scope of the film.
flannel.
Yeah, lose the flannel.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, flannel wasn't that big back then. Not as big as it is now.
Well, no, I mean, it was huge in the 90s.
Yeah,
no,
that
I was just
wrapped
making a joke
her-
on...
Oh, true.
I was
Yeah,
making a joke on when
I
Nick
stand
Fury...
corrected. I stand
Yeah.
corrected.
When Nick Fury is like lose the flannel or whatever. It's just it was a funny little thing there. But
And it was a nod to her being she was dressed up like it was grunge, and he made a comment, "Oh, grunge looks good on you," but then he's like, "You look
you
like
someone's disaffected niece.
Yeah, which and
Total
I had made the comment earlier, and this goes into what I've been saying this whole time. I think that she should have been looking like a disaffected niece from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that instead of making her, I think they were trying to make her like a powerful air pilot type thing.
Yeah.
And that's cool and that's awesome, but it would be more interesting to me if she was that and an alternative.
Well, yeah, because they're really playing
Yeah.
into the underdog of her being a girl. Like she goes to do the go-karts and she wrecks, and it's like her dad
Yeah.
is like, "You never should have been doing this," and like she rides her bike and she falls, and then she goes into the military and she fails in the rope swing and basic training or whatever, and it's like all these times, and then they play it to the end when she like. Oh, you're right, I am just human. And it's like, oh, she falls, but she always gets back up. And like she fights like, the oppression of like people not believing in her physical abilities or athletic abilities because she's a girl.
You know what it is? She's not scrappy enough to pull that off.
Yeah.
She's got voluminous, perfect blonde
Way too
hair, and beautiful, and she's playing this character that's supposed to be beaten down and gets back up. She never looks like she was ever beaten down to begin with.
That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get
And
that
that's
feel.
what I think that's where we lose it. And like I wanted so badly for this movie to be great and to knock it out of the park and to be just as good as Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed in that it's good, but it's not as good as I think it should have been or could have been.
Yeah, like I think if like I said this to you earlier, like if this was a DC movie, I would have been like, oh my god, like, DC made another pretty decent movie.
Yeah,
but like because it's a Marvel movie, I'm like, it's better than a lot of Marvel's movies, but it's way worse than a lot of Marvel's movies.
It's not Black Panther.
It's like in the middle. It's like I said to you earlier, it is an aggressively average movie. It's good enough to go see. It has enough good elements, but it's like super middling. It's just like it's serviceable. It has
I
superhero
think
origin
right there in the
story.
middle. Yeah. It's
and
not
I think
other
that
things.
my biggest problem and really my only problem that I can think of with that movie is what we've been talking about, and it's that her character is boring because I don't think it's got enough.
Well, this movie also kind of lacks like a real visual style. Like you can feel them kind of like trying to hit that James Gunn, tone in some parts and almost like an Iron Man-y part, like tone in parts, and it's it just never really feels super coherent in that way, like visually, and like the fight cinematography is never that great. It's really like chaotic, and the POV is awkward. I mean, there's some great choreography in the fighting, but in like the cinematography, it's just
I agree.
It's bizarre.
Though there is one shot that goes beyond my expectations for this film, and that was in the scene towards the end, right before that big final fight scene where she learns how to fly. She's falling from the atmosphere, and it's this fixed shot where it's looking directly at her face, and the earth is just coming up behind her, and I felt like that was such a well done shot.
Yeah, it was.
Of all of the shots in that film, nothing stood out to me except that one. When that happened, it almost felt like I was falling with her. It was like, oh my God, it's coming up right behind her. And talk about suspension of disbelief. I mean, I'm pretty jaded when it comes to films, and it's pretty hard.
I didn't know that.
Well, yeah. Well, it's hard for me to see a scene like that and not have in the back of my head, well, of course she's just going to learn to fly and survive and it'll be fine. For whatever reason, when that was happening, I guess it was just the speed at which it was coming, I think it was the length of the scene. The scene was it was a long shot, and it was happening for a very long time, and you kind of got a feel for how far she was falling and how quickly she was falling. It just felt like oh my God,
so
that
when
earth
her
is
eyes
coming.
open and like it all like she learns how to fly and stops, and
It's a symbolic shot. It really is.
Well, but it was almost visceral. Like I could feel it.
Yeah.
Which is something that I thought was really impressive, and I give a lot of kudos to the DP for that, because that was an impressive shot for me, in my opinion. And I didn't think there was anything particularly impressive about the rest of the movie in terms of cinematography. It was very normal, very stuff I've seen before.
World building though, and like setting it in the 90s was super convincing. Like
Oh,
really
yeah,
well done.
absolutely.
Yeah, it
Like,
felt
all the
like
cars and the clothing and the world. It just, you never for a second were like, no, it's not in the 90s. It felt like it was
agree.
95 the whole
Yeah,
time.
for me, it felt like a 90s film in parts. They used a lot of like bland locations, like, you know, a Rocky Canyon or even LA,
On the
you know, a
train
lot of.
and all
And there was a lot of
yeah.
beige
Beige,
plastic.
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, beige. But but I agree with you guys. Not a lot of the cinematography did, you know, stand out that way. Not a lot of it was special. And going back to the fight scenes, you know, Jude Law's training her in the beginning. I'm like, come on, I'm over that. You know, we've had enough of, you know, Black Widow's past and all of her fight training. You know, we don't want to go through all this dark fighting and training anymore. And I knew Jude Law's character was going to be a bad guy. I saw that coming. You know, who didn't see that coming?
He looks like a bad guy. I mean,
know, right?
Jude Law looks like a bad guy.
He does.
I really did like that little twist too of like, you know,
Yeah.
it's the beginning, it sets it up from the Kree perspective because she's with the Kree and it seems like they're the team of good guys, even though you're like, you see the one like black dude and you're like, he's a bad guy in Guardians.
I should have known
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
so, but like you're like, okay, I guess the Kree are good
Well, and
guys,
if
and the
you-
Skrulls are bad guys. The Namekians, I should call them.
Yeah.
They look
That's
just
funny.
like Namekians. But and like she even has a fight scene with the Skrulls, and you're like, okay, they're bad. And then it flips later on, and you realize like as she's questioning the Skrull guy, you're also questioning like, I think, is he lying to her? Is he deceiving her? And you realize that the whole twist is that the Kree are actually like bad, and they're working under Ronan the Accuser, who we've established in Guardians is not good.
Yeah, I know.
And that the
And
Skrulls are just looking for like a place to live.
It's
and
kind of
survive.
funny. I watched the first like 4 seasons of Agents of Shield, and they
Yeah.
talk about the Kree.
Yeah, they do.
when they start doing the whole like people who have superpowers thing.
Yeah.
And the Kree,
I remember that.
the Kree are like evil, like very like distinctly
Yeah, see,
not good.
I could never bother with Agents of Shield, so I guess I missed that.
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
Yeah, I know. I hear that.
I fell out
watched.
of it.
Yeah, me too. I watched the first 2-3 seasons. Totally fell out of it because it got boring. But yeah, the Kree were depicted as, you know, this dark alien race that, you know, should be feared. And the fact that they brought Coulson back from the dead with Kree DNA, that should give us an example that, you know, okay, they can't be trusted.
Okay.
And here, Captain Marvel's almost convincing me that they're good, and it makes no sense.
in Agents of Shield is where they establish in the MCU, if you want to count Agents of Shield as part of the MCU, where that's where they establish that the Kree are like war mongers.
Yeah.
And they're also in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, you've got the hammer dude whose name I always forget.
Ronan.
Ronan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the
okay.
main sort of
But just the way that it
antagonist
flips
in
it, you're like, oh, I guess the Kree are good this time. Just like that's the way that it flips you in that
I did
perspective.
think that for the first like
Yeah.
20 minutes. I was like, oh, Kree, these are those Kree. I guess it's you know they're gonna do that whole like war is a perspective thing. And then they didn't, and I kind of am glad that they didn't because I think in this case it would have been weird.
Yeah.
I do like how that all culminates, the whole Jude Law thing, when he's like, prove to me that you can beat me, and she just wrecks him, and she's like, I have nothing to prove to you.
That was pretty
that was a
awesome.
great moment.
If you were talking about scenes that weren't funny, I thought that was a scene that was both witty and funny.
It was.
Because he's a manipulator that whole
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
and like they kind of downplay the level of manipulation that he does. But in that last scene, it all becomes very, very clear
Where she
that
just
that's his
wrecks him.
character, right? Because he puts his puts his gun down and he's like, "All right, no, we're gonna prove to me, what, you know, I have no guns,
Yeah.
no powers, no anything." And as a person, I'm like, "Oh my god, he's so smart. He's literally gonna try to like, this is his
Deconstruct
only
her.
way out.
Yeah.
This is his only way out is taking away what her advantage." And he's going to try to manipulate her into doing that. But
Yeah.
she's too smart. She's just like, fuck you, and blasts him.
In a
Yeah.
typical movie, that would result in a 5 to 10 minute fight scene that would just drag, and we lose interest immediately
I
as a
just
viewer.
Missed
And
the sorry, Alan, not to cut
Yeah,
you.
no.
I think I just I didn't laugh at that moment. I don't know. I guess that it's funny looking back at it, but just in the moment, it missed the humor in me. But that actually did remind me of another moment that I did kind of laugh at, which is similar when they're breaking into the facility and Nick Fury goes to all that trouble with the tape.
Oh,
and then the
yeah.
next door, she just blasts open, and he's like, "You watched me mess around with the tape,
Yes,
and you could have
that
just done
was-
that." She's like, "I didn't want to steal your thunder."
that was funny.
a good moment.
That
Yeah.
was funny. Yeah. There's another funny
Well, and
moment.
that's what I mean, where like I think there was a lot of wit, not necessarily a lot of ha-ha humor. Because
Yeah.
I didn't laugh at either of those scenes. And the scene that I was talking about that I just now that I thought that I said was funny, it was funny in that he got his just desserts in such a gratifying way. It made me snicker. I didn't go, ha, that's so funny. Oh my God, I'm clapping my hands. I was like, oh my God, that's great. I'm glad that happened. And it was the same thing in that scene that you just mentioned with the tape, because I feel like in so many MCU movies, it would have been really easy for them to just pretend like the tape scene didn't even happen.
Yep.
Because that's the attention span that they usually have in these films.
Well,
It's
it
that-
also helps them set up the beeper.
Oh yeah, that's
Because
true.
she's like, give me your communicator. Clearly,
Yeah.
you can't be trusted with it. And then she ends
Right.
up rigging it to be able to call him
Yeah.
from a range of 3 galaxies.
Yeah, something like that. But
Yeah.
even then, it's irrelevant because what I'm really talking about is the fact that they did this gratuitous scene of
yeah.
Nick Fury doing MacGyver stuff to get out of the cell. And I feel like in a lot of the MCU movies, the way they've been set up, they wouldn't have had the sort of attention span as writers to continue that trend. It would have been, all right, he uses that to get through the door, and then they get to the next obstacle and she blasts it open, and then they pretend like, the tape thing never happened. And we as viewers would have been left to wonder, why didn't she do that in the first place? But it would have never been addressed on screen. And that's the level of expectation I have for like these movies. And the fact that they did something that I thought was both witty and like addresses that sort of bless you.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. Bless you. That addresses that was really refreshing, and I thought was one of the many things in this film that I did enjoy a lot.
Yeah, I'd say the MCU as a whole is more witty than haha funny. And at the end of the day, that's
Well, I think they
that's a little
try
better
to
than
be
haha
witty and
humor.
they end up being haha funny, but not really.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how I feel about
yeah.
it. Like, I think that they say things that they're like, this is, I'm so clever. Like, oh,
Yeah.
look at this this is a perfect place for a dick joke. And it's like, all right, yes, your timing on the dick joke.
This is the
could be
perfect place
construed as
for
witty.
Infinity
Yeah.
War to make the 95th joke about getting somebody's name wrong.
Yeah, right.
I know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but like you wanted to continue off what you were saying though about Fury. Let's talk about Fury because
Yeah,
Samuel
please.
L. Jackson is awesome in this movie.
He's awesome in every movie.
He is, but he shows up
Yeah.
to this movie.
Yeah.
and that character is like what really sells the movie for me. Like he's just
I
so much
agree.
fun to watch through the whole thing, and his dynamic with Brie Larson is awesome. Like
I
their chemistry
completely
is
agree.
on fire. That whole movie.
Yeah, I didn't expect that chemistry to work very well, but it did, and it was awesome. And seeing him work with Coulson, both these
Yeah.
rookie agents, that was kind of amusing.
Oh,
because
Coulson, the new guy.
yeah, because they're not the head guys
think-
yet. They're not the big shots yet.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if you let Samuel L. Jackson be Samuel L. Jackson, he will have great chemistry with
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, especially
That's true.
especially if you let him be a buddy cop, because he's been in so many buddy cop
Yeah.
movies, and this is
Yeah.
another like buddy cop movie.
That's
the two of
yeah,
them.
he knows how to do it. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, he's been around long enough.
It's really funny because I spent a lot of this movie just thinking about Pulp Fiction in the back of my head. Just be like,
because it's set 1 year after that was shot. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this would have been him at like the same age.
yeah, I know. I just,
Yeah.
and it's not like anything like really happened that
Yeah.
would tie the two movies together. Other than that, it was the same time period. But the whole time I was just thinking about that and thinking about the fact that Samuel L. Jackson is so old
Yeah.
in this movie, and
Yeah.
he's so old in real life. And I think it was a really good choice to not super de-age him.
Yeah, they didn't de-age him as much as they could have. They
I
did
think
enough of it.
they wiped away some of his wrinkles, but
He
they
doesn't
kept
look
his
quite
gray
as
hair.
young as he does in like Pulp Fiction. Like,
Right,
He doesn't look
yes.
that age. He looks
Yeah.
only 10 years older than
He
that.
he looks like he's in his 40s or 50s
Yeah.
in Captain Marvel, which is great because I think that sets us up to understand why Nick Fury is the way he is in the Avengers movies.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you look at the comic books, Nick Fury is supposed to be some fucking super badass like 007 blonde-haired white guy. And
As Ben would say, a foppish white guy.
I don't know if I'd say he was foppish, but he was definitely a white guy, and he was
Yeah.
definitely
He was
blonde.
David Hasselhoff for a time.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of character that you would anticipate to play Nick Fury. But the Nick Fury of the MCU is so much more interesting. I mean, he's
Oh, God, yes.
he's an old, grizzled, like super badass ex-spy, and he's that even in Captain Marvel. He's a super badass ex-spy, and I don't know. I really liked the fact that they chose to make him still kind of too old for this shit.
Yeah. Even though it's like when you think about it in the context, he's like pretty like early on in his like Shield career.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah.
and also I did it was a little on the nose, but I did like the whole Avengers initiative thing at the end.
Oh yeah, we're
Protect Your
initiative.
yeah, like where
Avenger.
did they get the name from?
And
You know,
they
that
don't even
answered that
show you.
question.
They don't show it on his screen that he typed in Avenger, but you know he
But
did.
you know, well, yeah.
Yeah, I know that was a pretty awesome scene, and the mid credits scene I have to say was pretty
It's
amazing.
literally,
I
I guarantee you, it's just pulled directly from his.
Oh, it is. It is. I wanted to jump out of my seat. It was so exciting because they turn around. They turn around and she's there. You know, they didn't drag it out. She was just there. Where's Fury? You know.
Also, I predicted that scene like as soon as it was starting. I was like, she's just gonna show up.
I think everyone did. Everyone's been expecting some kind of tie-in to Avengers Endgame, but yeah, I like how they answered a lot of MCU questions, like the Avengers Initiative. A lot of thrilling stuff. I like how they did that. But the thing is, the cat scratching Nick Fury's eye, and that's how he lost it.
I kind of love that. It was kind of so stupid that I couldn't help but love it.
I feel the same way.
I expected him to lose his eye in a more dramatic way.
Yeah.
I know, no, it was funny, I will admit, but it's not what I expected.
Because then you get another like, okay, so this is a joke that wasn't haha funny but was clever, is when Coulson is like, so was it really that the Kree burned your eye because you wouldn't tell them where the Tesseract was? And he's like, I will neither confirm nor deny that.
Right, yeah. So yeah, he's too ashamed to admit how it really happened.
And it kind of reminds me, and this is a sort of extreme example, but have you guys seen Hateful Eight?
No. I watched the first half hour of it. I haven't gotten all the way through it. Hateful Eight is a great movie. There's a scene in Hateful Eight where they start building up with this really dramatic music, and one of the sort of murderer bandito guys leaves the cabin and he's walking towards the bathroom, and you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? The music is getting more and more dramatic, and then he just sits in the toilet and goes to the bathroom. And it's a great it's such a great scene, because then the music just stops and they just cut to a new scene, and it's completely like the music was completely irrelevant. And Quentin.
Yeah, that's a Tarantino thing. Yeah. But I felt like what makes that sort of thing so great, that subversion of my expectation, is exactly what makes the cat scratching Nick Fury's eye out so great. Because like, you expect that, oh my god, he's some badass spy. Like, I think of like Snake from Metal Gear Solid. I don't know if you've played those games, but like, Snake is essentially a Nick Fury-esque type character, and he gets his eye taken, like literally like tortured and removed from his body in one of the games. And it's a really dramatic scene, and they're kind of like parallels in terms of what their character personalities are. And when Nick Fury loses his eye to a cat, I'm just like,
An alien cat,
but a cat nonetheless.
Yeah.
It's such a great scene. And they're just like, are you sure you're okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, you just lost your eye, dude.
There's giant cuts across his eyelid, probably into his actual eye.
What I also think is kind of funny is that Coulson is like, yeah, me and the other newbies are like, yeah, they burned your eye out. It's like, why does it clearly look like he was scratched by something then? But whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
So speaking of Coulson as opposed to Fury, okay, so two opposite ends of the uncanny valley. I did not find Coulson convincing at all. Like, that whole time I was like, this is so uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Like, it was so, like, it looked just fakely de-aged in the way that that Robert Downey Jr. does in the beginning of I want to say Civil War. There's
Civil
a quick
War,
scene where you see him like as in the simulation as like a teenager.
I agree.
But Samuel L. Jackson, super convincing. His de-aging is
and I don't
so
think they
convincing.
de-aged him very much, and that's why I think it's so convincing.
But Coulson is like, oh look, he's like 25, and you're like, no, he's not. He's 40 and wearing a lot of makeup, and like you did some weird CGI shit to like his like jawbone.
Oh my god, to me he looked exactly the same as he does. Like, I didn't even, to be honest with you, notice that he was de-aged. I just pretended to
He's
ignore
just
it.
so smooth. He's like it's like the same guy, but so fakely smooth on his face. It's really bizarre.
I agree with you guys 100%. They could have done a better job with Coulson. I mean, look what they did to Fury. I mean, yeah, I agree with you there.
But he's on
the
screen
movie,
for 5 minutes, so I think they just didn't put as much effort into it. Where Fury, it was like, it's like Thanos. Like, if you don't make that character look convincing, your whole movie kind of falls apart because he's on screen so much.
That's kind of sad. We don't care about Coulson now. I mean, what kind of treatment is he
I care
getting?
about Coulson. It's just that like he's not really a part of this movie.
Though I will say, my love for Coulson has been severely diminished by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep, me too. Yep. That where did that show go wrong? I got so uninterested in the middle of season 3. I watched it from 1 to 3. After that, I can't do this anymore. It's
I don't
too
know.
boring.
I think I might have even watched more than that, but it's just, I think the problem is just that they couldn't rectify Agent Coulson, like what Agent Coulson should be, with what Agent Coulson that the fans wanted, with what their like setting what they were able to deal with in their setting.
Yeah.
I think that it wasn't really any kind of specific type of show. It wasn't really a superhero show. It wasn't really a spy show. It didn't have a lot of political intrigue. It didn't have a lot of big, high budget action.
It's just a giant soap opera. That's all it is.
And
it's so dramatic.
And it's not good drama either. I mean,
No, it's not.
very kind of like
wordy.
The few episodes that I watched, I just was like, everyone on this show is way too sexy. Like to handle, like this doesn't seem like real life.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's true. I'm thinking about the cast now, and you're like, yeah, they are all really sexy.
Yeah,
but it's interesting though. The actress who plays Daisy, Chloe Bennett, she even complained how the show does not have enough connections to the movies and what the fans want. So that's the problem with the show overall. And you know, Disney Plus, they're creating exclusive Marvel shows like Winter Soldier and Falcon. They're getting a show. Loki's getting a show, and they confirmed that. But on the bright side, they're going to be strictly connected to the movies, unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I mean, I hope
they're not going to be making the mistake.
They said the same thing about the Netflix shows, which are also supposed to be connected to the world, but all that really happens is it's like Karen Page has a Battle of New York like front page taped in her office.
Yeah, I know.
It's like that's a thing that happened.
Yeah. And then occasionally somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, like Thor or Iron Man," and it's like,
yeah, no, you don't get that feel. Believe me, I worked on the set of one of those shows. It did not have that magical Marvel feel. It just felt like an action
no movie
TV
has
show.
a magical feel when you're on the set.
Like,
well,
being on the set of a movie is like the most boring, tedious thing ever. The magic happens in the post.
Well, true, but when you're in the middle of Albany shooting a Netflix crime show, you know, the feel is ultimately different. You don't get that magic Disney feel. You know, the magic's just not there.
The Punisher could never have that feel.
It'd be really weird if the
Punisher did. Yeah.
It's not the right kind of superhero.
I think they've made a huge mistake integrating those heroes on Netflix because, you know...
I don't think so. I think Netflix is the perfect platform for the darkness of the Punisher and Daredevil.
Yeah, it's just the MCU feel is so different compared to those shows, and it almost feels like weird to me how that same universe could be involved with the MCU.
Well,
they're great,
really
they're very well done, but yeah, it's just weird how they set them in the MCU because, you know, they both have very different feels. The MCU is very lighthearted, where, you know, the Netflix shows are a little more dark, and they're great, but still,
I mean,
it doesn't feel like they're part of the same universe.
I think the big mistakes they made in the Netflix shows is just that some of them have there's some really bad writing.
Yeah.
And I think that for the Defenders to have really been super successful,
literally Iron Fist is so bad.
Iron Fist is just bad, and I think that what the mistake that they made is all of those characters could have been super compelling if they existed in a sphere that wasn't the Avengers.
I mean, Matt Murdock is consistently compelling through all 3 seasons of Daredevil.
I couldn't even finish season 1, so
really?
I don't know. I wasn't interested.
They deconstruct that character in season 3 so beautifully. It's so worth your time
I've heard it's really funny because everybody I talk to is just like, no, it's bad. Don't even bother. And and I couldn't even finish the first season of Daredevil.
Fuck those people, sir.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I should really get a feel for it myself.
First season of Luke Cage is good too.
But season 1 of Luke,
Ali.
I mean, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones were the only 2 series that I thought were good.
See, I couldn't get through season 1 of Jessica Jones.
I thought season 1 of Jessica Jones was excellently written. But I also think that all of those shows, like, I think that they felt wrong in a lot of ways. I think that I don't know if it was the atmosphere or the scale or the production values of those shows, but I felt like they could have existed in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or in the Marvel universe, but they missed out on some of those aspects of that universe that make it that universe. I think that they all felt a little bit more like our universe, which maybe was the point because they were supposed to be on a lower
They're like
scale.
down to earth characters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Except that
street level.
Except that, like, I think the choices in cinematography and stuff just made it impossible to have that. Like, I look at Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones is a very desaturated show. It's very neo-noirish. It's very crime drama. And that's fine, except that we know what New York City looks like in the MCU, and it does not look like it does in Jessica Jones or even Luke Cage. And when you get to the big end battle of season 1 of Luke Cage, that doesn't feel right. Like, that doesn't it doesn't feel like the New York City that we've come to see. Or
well, it's also one of those moments where you're like, where is this hero? Like, where's Iron Man?
Right.
Where's, like, Spider-Man or something?
Right. And and there is a Burroughs thing going on where, like, Iron Man is a Manhattan thing, and
Daredevil's looking over at Hell's Kitchen, and
right.
Spider-Man's in Manhattan.
Right, and they're all doing their own thing. But even then, I felt like it doesn't feel like it's a part of the MCU. But we're completely digressed. This is a Captain Marvel episode.
I know. Yeah, we got to get back.
Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about? Any major topic within this movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. I just got to think of it, but yeah, I've stated my reasons why I said it's good. You know, it strays from the typical MCU origin formula, and that's why I ultimately think. I'm sorry, excuse me. That's why I ultimately think the movie was unique, and that's why I loved it. And you know, I agree with you, TJ. It is in the middle. They haven't made any similar mistakes that they have with, you know, previous films, like, you know, sequels. There's so many bad MCU films. I'm sorry, not so many, but, you know,
there's so many.
Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The First Avenger. That was
Ragnarok, Captain America: Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War,
all good ones.
Infinity War.
Oh my God, I draw the line there, but
Age of Ultron is bad. Age of Ultron is bad.
Yes, Age of Ultron is bad. I do not like that one. But yeah, Captain Marvel, I don't
Guardians
think...
Galaxy Volume 2.
I don't
Shut
think
the fuck up, man.
But yeah, I'm really convinced that Captain Marvel doesn't make those mistakes because I did enjoy it. It was easy to enjoy it. Like, I had to make myself enjoy Age of Ultron, even though I didn't, because this was the latest film and that's all we had. But Captain Marvel, it's just easy to enjoy, you know?
I think that, honestly, I think Captain Marvel is better than middle of the road for the MCU. I think middle of the road for what the MCU has shown they're capable of.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to put it ranked in movies, I think it's
Marvel's put
well
out like
above.
what, 20 movies?
21.
About 21. So it would to me, I think would still be on my top half. It would still be on like the top 10 or 11 rather than the bottom 10 or 11.
I think it'd probably make my top like 6, to be honest with you. I don't know. I do think that I'd be hard pressed to find more than a handful of the MCU movies that I think are better than it. I think the ones that are better than it are a lot better than it.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
But I think that most of them are worse, and that's kind of where I feel. And like just going down, I have all of the films right in front of me, and to me, Iron Man 1
is better. Iron Man 1 is better.
Yep.
Homecoming is better.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And maybe the first Avengers is better.
Yeah, Avengers.
First Avengers will always be unbeatable, no matter how many more heroes you add to the mix.
Shit, man. Honestly, I would argue that Ant-Man is better.
Yeah, the first Ant-Man's cool. It's a heist.
I didn't like the first Ant-Man.
Fair enough.
I didn't. I think you might be right though. I don't like Ant-Man. I didn't like the Ant-Man movie. I've never been interested in the Ant-Man character.
Do you like Paul Rudd?
No.
Yeah, so that's probably a big part of it. He's like the big sell for that movie.
Yeah, I don't find him entertaining, funny, or
oh man,
I don't know. It's not for me. So anyway, I wouldn't put Ant-Man above.
I would 100% put Guardians above Captain Marvel.
I probably would too, begrudgingly, because I don't like Guardians, and I think there's a lot of Guardians to me is like fake news. It's really appealing, and it plays to like some like rhetoric that is not necessarily to me what makes a movie good. But at the same time, it's hard to deny that Guardians of the Galaxy was entertaining. Yeah. It's hard to deny that Guardians of the Galaxy was really important for the MCU. I think that Guardians of the Galaxy is incredibly overrated. And I think that Captain Marvel is probably going to be underrated.
It feels like it's already getting overrated, though. I think just by virtue of it being such a big event for, like, you know,
Captain Marvel is an incredibly important film, and I think it deserves that level of hype. But I will say that for those people who aren't looking at it from this feminist lens, they're going way farther in the opposite direction. There is a lot of bashing of this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be for the same reasons that there was for The Last Jedi.
Yeah, all the trolling on Rotten Tomatoes, all that crap going on.
And you're not gonna you won't argue with me if I say that The Last Jedi is an underrated film.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that
this movie is hands down the best of the new Star Wars movies.
Hands down, I agree.
Sorry, Alan.
No, you're entitled to your opinion, man.
Yeah, and we could absolutely also have a Star Wars episode. We've been talking about it since we started.
Oh yeah, we got to do a Star Wars episode.
Star Wars: The Last Jedi is one of the reasons why TJ and I decided to start doing this podcast.
Yeah, we talked about it for like 6 hours one afternoon.
6 hours.
We were
like,
why don't we just record ourselves talking about these things?
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, there's 6 hours worth of stuff that we can talk about with The Last Jedi. It's not just us sitting around saying, "Oh, it's a great movie." You know, like we have a really there's a lot to unpack in that film.
Oh, there's so much to unpack from Star Wars. I mean, you know, it's 40 years of filmmaking history. It's our childhood.
But I will argue right now, with God as my witness, that there is more to unpack in The Last Jedi than most of the other Star Wars movies put together. I'm not going to necessarily say all, but probably all.
That's weird, because for me it's the exact opposite. I didn't.
It's so densely layered.
Nothing happened in The Last Jedi that I expected, so it would be harder for me to unpack some things. Like I didn't care
But
for
it's good that it's unexpected.
That's exactly what TJ and I were talking about earlier.
It didn't play to your expectations.
Yeah,
we were talking about this with Odie, because Odie doesn't like it either.
Yeah, I didn't want to see Lucas, this washed up hermit on an island. I thought he'd have this secret League of Jedi.
Well,
that he was
that's way
training,
more interesting that he had this fall from grace and has like isolated himself than if he was just like, I am all powerful. I am the exact continuation of somebody from 30 plus years ago.
That movie is great because it subverts what everybody expected in a way that's so much more realistic than what people wanted. People wanted to relive the glory days of Mark Hamill, but in all honesty, in the state of the universe, it wouldn't have made sense for there to be a new school of Grey Jedi that was still around because we still have this problem with the Sith, and there's nobody to fight it except Rey, who's a trash person.
And the way that ties into Kylo Ren's character is amazing.
Yes,
it's just awesome.
absolutely.
And the fall from grace of Luke Skywalker.
And the fact that Rey isn't like the child of one of the
fact that she's just some random person, and that
was frustrating.
That was amazing.
No, that's the best part of that movie
because it shows that you don't need to be a fucking chosen one. You can just like any person with the right will can become someone great, and that was the message that you should be taking away from that, or at least that the film was definitely trying to convey, and I think it did it.
Yeah, no, that actually was good. Yeah, it's
anyway, we're digressing again.
Digressing horribly.
Captain Marvel, what is it about you that's making it so hard for us to keep?
Hey, when you're talking about film, you can't help but digress. That's how you compare and contrast.
Well, I think we talked about the 5 things that are great about it and the 5 things that aren't great about it, and so we're just like, whatever.
And it's kind of like I said when we started, it's kind of bland.
Yeah.
What about, I touched on it a little bit, but what about the mid-credit scene where you see some of the Avengers? Any thoughts on that?
Boring, stupid.
Oh my god.
It was
unnecessary.
Okay, so talk about bland. That scene was like so desaturated and like bleak.
Well, that's what they're doing for all of the Endgame stuff.
Yeah.
It's because it's like, oh my god, look how empty it is. There's no more color.
They're watching the numbers drop of like or rise of people dead or missing. And all that.
That's dumb. I'm so dumb. I'm like, I thought Infinity War was dumb. So Endgame to me is a pointless movie, which means that a trailer about Endgame as the mid-credit scene takes away anything that you know what I would have really liked to see as a mid-credit scene?
A cat throwing up a Tesseract.
No. This is the one thing that I forgot to talk about. Okay, I'm glad we've got back on track. Monica. Monica is Captain Marvel's best friend.
Daughter. Yeah. I forgot the name. Yeah.
So cool. I would have also really liked to have seen if they could have tied it closer to like the cosmic world with Guardians. If there could have been some kind of shout to like Adam Warlock.
That would have
been a cool thing to like.
I want to see an Adam Warlock movie.
Endgame.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's besides the point. Maybe we'll see Adam Warlock. Who knows? I would love that. But I am going to say right now. So one of the iterations of Captain Marvel is an empowered black woman, and we see in Captain Marvel that her biggest fan is a little black girl who, at the time of Endgame, is going to be a fully fledged adult at prime superhero age.
Yeah, that could be a good future for the franchise.
And I would think it would be I could be risky because they just had Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. It would be risky to have a new one
for like a whole trilogy and then hand it off to that girl when she's like 20.
I think. What I think would be even better is to see her hand off Captain Marvel now and then become the character that Captain Marvel becomes.
I'll have like a Peter Parker, Miles Morales kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and I'm not super familiar with the comic books in this, but I do know that Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, becomes a different superhero.
Kind of like Robin to Nightwing,
right? And then the new Captain Marvel is that black woman. How awesome would it be to see Monica as an adult as the new Captain Marvel with Brie Larson as an older, like, because 20 some years older.
It would be super awesome, but not remotely as awesome as if Shuri became Ironheart.
I mean, that's true. That's another topic.
You got to see that, man.
I mean, I agree. I'm so about that. You don't even know. She even made a comment in what was it, in Infinity War, where she was like, like she made a comment about his suit. Pretty sure that happened.
Oh, it was like that. It was pretty weak tech or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember where or when, but yeah.
Well, it would have to have been in Infinity War because that's the only time anybody.
Okay, so it seems like we've pretty much exhausted everything we can say about Captain Marvel, and we're running pretty low on time anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we went, sorry, Alan, but we went super like over our time on our MCU discussion.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Episode.
There was a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, don't worry about it, guys.
There were 3 whole phases as opposed to 1 movie.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I had a blast. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, absolutely,
no
man.
problem.
Thank you for coming on, man.
And as always, please like, subscribe. We're not trying to beg. We know a lot of you guys don't like that.
That's fair. I don't like that.
Yeah, who does, right? But we do want to see this channel grow. So we're still gonna beg a little bit.
We want to give you more discussions of superheroes, and we want to have a big Star Wars episode in the future.
Oh yeah, Star Wars episode.
Cool shit, man.
That would be awesome.
We got episode 9 in December.
It's true.
Still
that
no
would
trailer
be a great
yet.
time for us to tie in a Star Wars episode.
That
we
would
did
be
this
really
week
awesome.
So yeah, if you guys want to see us get to that point, man, just support us.
Maybe
give us
we
a
could
like,
do. Maybe we could do like a multiple hour live stream.
Let's just
like
watch
a 3-hour Star Wars live stream.
That'd be fun.
I think that would be really fun. We'd have to find people who would want to watch it. Anyway, guys, email us at yourboomisintheshot.gmail.com.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
At gmail.com.
That's a pan shot.
That's a fan shot. I always say that. It's kind of a funny thing, but it's actually at gmail.com, not .gmail.com.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Send us an email. Give us some feedback.
Send us your emails. Tell us you hate us. Thank you for joining us on our Marvel Mania week special. It's been awesome. This is TJ.
This is Ben. And there's Alan over there.
And there's Alan.
And this is Alan.
Yeah,
Thank you all for listening, guys. It's okay, Ben. Thank you all for listening, guys.